Hi, my name is Cheri. Welcome to my Stampin' Up! Workshop. So today, I'm going to continue on my Easter series, but before we do that, I'm just going to give you a couple of reminders. One is that I have opened registration for my online spring retreat. We'll be making 12 projects. There's 4 different ways that you can participate. So while it's online, and it will post over one weekend. It doesn't matter if you do it that weekend. You'll have access to the tutorials for a year, and they're all video tutorials. So you can get the stamp sets, you can get just the videos, you can get just the card supplies. There's 4 different ways, so you pick which best suits your needs. And the cards this time will all be technique based. So we're going to be doing what I call the museum frame. We're going to be doing some watercolor resist. We're going to, it's all going to be different. There's not going to be any stamping and coloring in. That won't happen in this retreat. It did in my winter retreat. It's not that I'm against that. We're going to be doing that on today's card. But this upcoming one is technique based. So I wanted to show you real quick, the bundles that will be featured are the perennials, the brushed blooms, and the tranquil thoughts. So you can use those. You can substitute ones that are similar that you have. So all the information for that is on my website. It does take place in April, so you have to get registered soon. Then this weekend on Friday and Saturday, my team and I are hosting a free online event. Again, if you can catch it live, there will be some live action on that one, but you can always watch the replay. It's on Facebook. That one is, and we are going to be showcasing the elements of the new butterfly bouquet collection from Stampin' Up! So we're going to do stamps, dies, and both the papers. So today's card that I'm going to be doing, I'm using this wood grained specialty paper. It's called the Naturals Specialty Paper, I think is the name of it. That's what I'm using today. So even though it's part of the butterflies, you don't have to obviously use it with the butterfly card, because today I'm not. So if you want to invite to that, you can go to my Facebook page, or you can go to my website or check out my email to get an invitation for that. Then today I'm continuing on my Easter series. So this was the first card in the Easter series, and this tutorial is already on YouTube. So if you want to go see this, super adorable card. 1 full sheet of white cardstock is all you need to make it. And then uses some coloring and some of the blending brushes, which carries over again in today's card. So for today's, we are going to use this stamp set Gift of Hope, which is in the January to June mini catalog. Super sweet, inexpensive. There's no dies or anything that go with it. It's straight up old fashioned, just buy a stamp set, red rubber. So we're going to use that. And like I said, we're going to use this paper, and this paper is only available while supplies last. I wish you could see it up close. It already has the wood grain texture in it, but it's real thin. This side's kind of intriguing. I don't think I would ever use it because this side's beautiful. And so it has, I don't know if I can angle it so you can see the imprint of the wood grain, but it's really pretty and it's very thin. So we're going to use that. We're going to use purple posy cardstock because that's an outgoing in color. And I wanted to remind you that if you need anything purple posy or any of the outgoing in colors, now's the time to get them before they start selling out. And then some shimmer white cardstock. So I am going to use my Stamparatus because I wanted the things on here to be stamped really well, really nice and crisp. But I also, because it's shimmer white, I didn't want my images to be, my paper to be any bigger than I needed it to be. So I'm just going to use some seal. I'll put that on here. This is going to get run through with a die. So that's good. It doesn't even really matter if this one's straight. Put that in there. And then I'm going to use Memento. We're going to use a couple of different stamping techniques on this card, just because the papers that we're working with, the shimmer and the shape of the stamps, and then that wood grain, to get the most out of them, I'm going to give you a couple of different little tips. So when I stamped this just on its own, it was not quite as crisp as I wanted it to be. And it's partly because I'd used the Stamparatus for this, because it's a circle. And sometimes, if they're just a tad off on your circles, then it can make your whole card look a little tad off. So see what I mean? It's not quite as dark as I might want it to be. And I could have pressed a little harder, except I knew I could get 2 or 3 inks with it because I'm using the Stamparatus. So I would rather just keep going until I have it the color I want instead of pressing too hard. But because I was using the Stamparatus already with the circle, it was just easier to use it with this. So one more coat. And that should give our shingles on that roof there a really nice. See how much darker it gets? It just gets so much prettier and darker. In fact, I'm going to do one more. It's partly because I have this on the other side and I'm not inking it as strongly as I could if I dropped it down. But you know, lots of things on my table. Look, just so much nicer. And since this is going to be die cut, it didn't matter if it was straight. So I can just rip that out. And then you can just clean this off with a wet wipe or your Stampin' Mist. Now this one I have set up. Try not to get my hands dirty. So it goes from perfect on here. So just kind of lay it in here. And I want the wood paper really to be the star of this card. So this is in here straight. And then I've already put some adhesive back there. So once I had the stamp on here. And then if I need to trim it down either side this way, I can. This over here so my church doesn't get, I don't want to stamp my church on my table. And this one, it only took twice to stamp it nicely because it didn't have any of those bold images like that roof. When you have those, the Stamparatus is just nice because it gives you that extra times that you can stamp it. When there are outline images like this, well, I didn't stamp that very well because I'm trying to not get my hands dirty. So there, I mean, that stamped fine, nothing missed. That little leaf up there could be a little bit better. But when you can do it twice, it just is that much darker. So put this on here. Some of the things we're going to do on this card are a little bit in funky order because of some of the tips I'm going to show you. There we go. And that could still even be a little bit darker. So that is this side. I just like to show you the benefits of having the Stamparatus, and every time it just looks more and more like you have got a professional print the more times you can ink it up. See how much nice and darker that is? I'm gonna take this out and I'm gonna get the Stamparatus out of the way. And the Stampin' Seal is repositionable, so it stays on here. It's not on the back of my card. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and cut my things out of the paper with my cut emboss because we're gonna use this paper, and because it's a specialty paper, it's not as inexpensive as our cardstock. So we're gonna, when we mount all this, this is going to get mounted on here. So, you know, when you glue that on, oh, look, I did get it dirty. So that's going to be trimmed off. It could be stand to be trimmed off anyways. Oh, look, that's why. Hang on just a second. Okay, I washed my hands off. So when this gets on here, it's going to, all of that underneath, it's just going to get glued on top of, right? So what I did was I just went over to my wall of dies, and you could do this with any die that you have, although you are going to be seeing this making a reappearance now. See, this is smaller than that. So I'm just going to put this right here in the middle of this piece of cardstock, just cardstock saving technique. And you'll see this make another appearance as part of what was laying on my desk, but this is kind of an intentional what was laying on my desk. And whether or not it reappears in the butterfly event on the weekend, or whether or not it may reappear on an Easter card, because look how pretty this is. So instead of just having this be covered up and never seen again, now we have another piece here that we can use. So I'll just put this aside. You know, I have those little things on my desk where I keep little pieces of scrap like that. So we've got that. And this one came out of the Tasteful Textiles, I think it's called, frames. Now, because this church is stamped crooked, you don't want to put this straight to your paper. You want to line it up straight to the bottom of the church. So I want that to go on there like that. Except you should do it after you've got it on here so you don't have to line it up again. But sometimes that's an optical illusion, because just look at the bottom of your church, not at the paper, and then we'll send that through. And this gives us a nice little frame. I love this stamp set, but to be honest, I had a little bit, and it was partly because I wanted to use the paper, but it was a little bit of a challenge to get the words on there that I wanted, because I wanted the He Lives. And you're gonna see that we have to do something special to get them to go on the front with all of this, because of their large, to get them to fit on here, we have to have them go long way. So we're gonna do that next, because this, you can stamp on everybody that thought that I was using my butterflies for my background techniques, I have now removed them from my Stamparatus, and I moved them right here because I just keep using them. So they're going to go right back in when I'm done with this card. So this, you can stamp on it. It just be forewarned, it takes a while to dry. So I could have gone and gotten my stays on, but I'm just going to set it to the side and then it will be dry. But you can see the He Lives doesn't fit anywhere. So at first I put it on a couple of other die cuts, and it was just too much. There was too much all over the card. I want it to go long ways. So we're going to go back to the magic of some washi tape. You can use masking tape if you have masking tape. I still have scads of retired washi tape from when we used to have it. So you just want to cover up the lives first. Go back to my black pad. Try not to get my fingers dirty again so I don't have to stop and go wash my hands. Ink up the He. And I don't put it all the way on there. And then just pull this off. And then directly into the trash, because that can get on your hands. So we've got the He. Put it right here. And then it does stay wet. Grab my chamois. Hang on. And now I'm going to do washi off. So what you're doing is you're covering up, and you can use, like I said, just Scotch tape, but you're just covering up the bottom part of this. So when you go to stamp it, it doesn't get ink on this. It's still kind of wet. I just made my chamois be wetter than it needed to be, but we'll make it work. You could use a Stampin' Right marker, but it would take even longer to dry on here than the Memento. And my goal was to get it to dry as fast as possible. So get the lives. And the reason I'm doing the corner is because I haven't inked up all the way, covered up the whole word. If you cover up the whole word, then you can stamp the whole thing on here. So I still need that top of the L, and I'm trying to be careful because this thing is falling off. I'm gonna have to wash my hands again. Sometimes stamping is dirty. You get your hands dirty. There, so now we have it. And see, I have some more ink on me. So I'll stamp this and then I'll go wash my hands again. Put that in the trash. Oh, here. I have the wet towel over here from where I washed them before. Let me just get that off. Okay, and then this has that nice little L thing there, so it kind of tells me where my live should be. And it won't be perfect. You could put it back in the Stamparatus if you want, but the problem is this paper, like I said, takes a while to dry, so you would have to wait for the He to dry really before you did the lives, and I'm impatient. So now just set this aside and let it dry. And then we'll go back over to this. So these we're just going to color quickly with our blends. And see here I had this. I'm just going to take, luckily I did it on the side where I have a little bit of space. Because like I said, I wanted as much of that wood paper to show as I can. So we just get that right off. And anytime you have a little smudge, if it's on the edge like that, just take it off. On some cards you can do a splatter. This card you don't really want a splatter. So I have chosen Purple Posy because that's the color of our background paper. So I'm going to do dark. I have dark and light of all of my colors. Let's put some dark in here. And it's really funny. I chose these colors. I did the whole card, and then I was going to put pearls or champagne rhinestones on at the end. But then I reached into my embellishment thing, and the playful playing with patterns embellishment, little decorations, they're in these exact colors. So it was like meant to be. They're Easter colors. Who knew? So put these on here. And you don't, I mean, we're not doing any kind of great blending because it's just a fun thing. Then I wanted my windows on here to have a tinge. You don't really see it. You kind of do. But I wanted them to be a little stained glass. So I just added the purple in those lines. Then the little posies, I should have done those in posy. I just did, this is daffodil. So I did the circle in the middle, just with a dot. And then I just swirled around with this. I was not bothered on these if I stayed in the line. I was going kind of for the country effect because it looks like a little country church. And then I have just jade. So I took the dark. I didn't use a whole lot of the dark, just in the larger leaves. I just add a little tinge and not in the small leaves. That way, there's just a little bit of highlight color, but again, we're not going for super fancy on these. Then for the light, I took the brush tip and just, I don't like floating churches especially. So I just gave a little bit of grass there. And then just one swoop of color into these leaves. I didn't trace the stems. You could if you wanted to. And I may go back and do more of again, another kind of country gingham thing with this. And do it in some more, I don't know. I really wanted to do like a brown and red kind of tan card with the country church because I kind of liked that feeling. But I just had to do these flowers in spring colors, and then the red just didn't cut it with the Easter thing. So there's that. And I'm going to take my color lifter, just kind of blend some of that line of the grass so it's not just a straight line. And then I have crumb cake for my church. So dark and light. Whoops. Whoa. Kind of do my roof and then kind of the outlines here. There we go. It doesn't need a whole lot of color because there's a lot going on. Then I used this on the other Easter card too, same colors. I'm going to use my blending brush and the pool party. And I'm just going to kind of start in here. Oops. And give this center a nice little hue in the middle. In fact, if you're doing a different card, you could do this and then just stamp that he lives right there. You don't have to add the church. If you're doing a little wedding card, you could do the church and not do any of this Easter sayings. You could use some kind of a wedding saying and do this pretty much the exact same card. Let me take this over here, and then we have the grass. So I'm just going to give it a little bit of sky. I don't want too much, just a little bit. So there we go. And we just have to put it together. So I'm going to grab my thing. And then here's a little trick for you. Lay it down very carefully. And we'll hope that we got anything that might be wet. Oh, it looks pretty dry. So, but it does take a few minutes for it to get kind of like that. And I'm going to try not to put my fingers on it. So I am going to take this. This is a little bit tricky now because I've put this here. So I'm going to add a little bit of adhesive to hold this all in place for a second right here. Because I want to add a bow. So this needs to be here. But there's not a whole lot left to stick it on. It's going to stick to the card because we'll have all that under there that we can glue to the card. Then I want my bow to go through the middle of this. This is from our Forever Greenery combo of ribbon. I thought it had a nice muted country feel to it. It also comes with the gold. So if you're going a little bit fancier with this card, you could use the gold. Make sure there's enough. Try not to touch that black. It will be all the way dry soon. I know that if I smeared it, it would smear. But by turning it over and pressing it on the other thing, if there's any like grabs of ink, like sometimes on those exclamation points or something, they kind of grab and they hold a little bit more ink. I'll put this here to hold my bow. Right there in the middle of that. And then I'm going to put a little bit here, a little bit here. And flip this around. And again, you have to be careful because that might be wet over there. The bow kind of keeps it lifted in the air. And now we can stick it all on and just make sure that you get all that place where we saved that paper so nobody else is ever going to know. See, that's where the ink came off on the paper. There was a little bit left. Move all that out of the way. So we want to make sure that we get some adhesive here that sticks that to the middle and some adhesive here that holds the rest of that ribbon on. And then along the edge. Now normally the seal is repositionable, but because we have so much going on here, I really don't want to pick it up. But this is 5.5. So as long as I start on one side and go over, it's 5.5 by 4. And later you can go back and press that, but I'm not going to press it now. So I've got that. I'm going to take my bone folder. That's so it stays shut. And then you just grab a couple of dimensionals. Pop this in the middle of your wreath. And then, like I said, I grabbed these, which wasn't my original intent. I was going to put just plain pearls or maybe the champagne rhinestones. I was afraid they might be a little glitzy. I thought the pearls would be beautiful, but these are the exact colors. So that's what I went with. So grab a green and I just kind of added it up here, and then a purple. Put a purple there. And then a yellow. So super easy, a fun way to use the paper, a couple of different little techniques in there to help you in the future. So there's the other one. So this, you can see I've pressed that flat now that I've had a little bit of time for this one to dry. So that's this Easter card. If you're interested in participating in my online retreat, or if you want to invite to the Facebook event that we're doing on this weekend, then just let me know. And I will see you back here later this week for another Easter card. Bye.